Welcome to a brand new episode of the Outlier Podcast. I've got Jason with me today. Hi, Jason. How are you doing?
Hi, Anurag.
Pleasure. Actually, we are at the same room. We're just, turning on cameras just to pretend that, we are doing it together. And we are just using...
He's right there.
Exactly. Right here. So it's one of my very few in-person podcasts. So I thought of, so me and Jason were catching up. We thought of doing an episode today. Then again, shooting it virtually because in-person conversations are always interesting. For everyone of my guest, who's Jason is one of the very progressive CIOs I've seen or known in the last few years. Jason is a CIO of First Advantage Credit Union, First Advantage Federal Credit Union, here based in Virginia. Having spent almost 3 decades with credit unions and financial services, I would say one of the true blue credit union execs I've known so far. So Jason, obviously I did not do justice to your introduction because this is not just you. If you want to add who Jason is, please feel free.
Thanks, Anurag. I'm glad to join you. As you said, 30 years in the credit union industry or the credit union movement. I don't like to refer to it as the industry. It's very much a movement. First Advantage is my current role. I am the CIO there. Prior to that, I was at AB&B, which is also in Virginia. And before that, I was at Picatinny Federal Credit Union in New Jersey for 15 years. So I guess it's 12 years ago, I hitched up my trailer. There was about a foot of snow on the ground, and then I made the trip to Virginia. So I've been here ever since. I'm happy to join you. I'm not used to being on this side of the camera. I have my own little podcast that I do as well. So this is a new experience for me. So I'm looking forward to chatting with you today.
Absolutely. So Jason, let's start the podcast with one question. Why don't you share your journey so far? What has been your journey so far?
It's hard for me to describe sort of my journey briefly. I've always been the kind of person that looks for opportunity. And thankfully, at most of the organizations that I've been at, I've been able to find that opportunity internally, whether it's ascending to the CIO role at Picatinny after a number of years and really sort of finding my management style and finding what worked for me. That was great. And at, First Advantage, it's been very much the same. And it was the same at AB&B. So opportunity to be strategic, opportunity to be, a partner within the organization and provide, strategy and technology all at the same time is really, my career journey.
That's great to hear. Moving on to obviously the first question about is solving problems, right? So I want to ask you, Jason, about what member problem are you trying to solve with technology this year? Mm-hmm. This is a difficult question. There are so many problems to solve for. Mm-hmm. You have to pick up one and, talk about one.
So I'm going to have kind of an unusual response to this question because as a CIO, you wouldn't expect that my first answer would be not technology related. There are a lot of challenges within organizations, specifically credit unions, that don't have anything to do with technology. They're related to process. They're related to operational inefficiency. They're related to, just a whole lot of tech and organizational debt. Now, obviously, as a CIO, I will try to find solutions that leverage technology to make those things better. But for me, looking at friction within an organization is one of the biggest things that a credit union can do for its membership. And the amazing thing is it's not even always about the membership. The employees, the colleagues, the staff, whatever your credit union chooses to refer to them as, they are the representatives of the credit union that face the members. So if you can make their lives easier, if you can make their processes more simplified, more streamlined by applying technology, then the member benefits. So, always think about how you can make your organization more efficient and how you can service the members more efficiently. And a lot of times just look inside the walls, look inside the organization, look at the cubicle next to you, because I guarantee you there's operational inefficiency in those cubicles.
Interesting. I thought that you'll pick up something very different, but this is
I could have very easily said AI or stablecoin or money movement or any number of,
sure.
Tech modernization, digital in enhancement, all of those sorts of things are, they're great buzzwords. But, if you don't have a handle on your processes, if you don't know what you do on a day-to-day basis, it's hard to apply technology to that. I would love to automate tons and tons and tons of processes, but if nobody understands the processes or the processes are locked inside, a longtime employee's head, how do you automate that? How do you apply RPA or, agentic AI. You can't do that. So that's, I think, an obstacle for a ton of credit unions. From the 50 million to the 50 billion, I don't think this is something that's unique to a certain asset size. I think it's long-time credit unions have long-time processes that, need the light of day. And I think that's the biggest opportunity for credit unions today.
Interesting. Now, a very obvious question you might have heard a lot of times by your partner, right? Same question around build by your partner. How do you make the call? Because it's not easy to decide what to build or what to buy or what to partner.
For me, that evaluation really depends on the scenario. My organization right now is not large enough, doesn't have the expertise to staff a full-time, NOC to monitor information security. So we have to partner with vendors that can do that, whether it's a Pure IT or a Silver Sky or somebody like that. We realize that we do not have the expertise to handle that. When it comes to, building or buying, same. You have to sort of look at the use case and identify, do you have the, the expertise on staff, or do you have the, the capital to maintain, a large capital expenditure? If so, then go ahead and buy. But if you can partner with somebody, and that's going to take care of some of those regulatory requirements, some of the due diligence, some of the BCP, all of those sorts of things, and make your life a little easier, why wouldn't you? So I think you really need to evaluate this situation for what fits most for your credit union. Sure. Not, there isn't a one size fits all answer to that question.
I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of, obviously, you might hate to answer the question about AI, I know, because it's
I love AI. Absolutely. I have a DGX Spark sitting on my desk. So I am not afraid of technology. I might be the CIO that talks a lot about operational efficiencies and process management and things like that, but I'm an IT nerd. 100%. I have a data center in my house. The most data intensive application that I support on a regular basis is my wife's gaming habit.
That's good to hear. So talking about use cases, right? Obviously, I doing AI for the last 10 years when AI was not cool. We were those geeky nerdy kids who used to write codes in Python and build machine learning models.
Absolutely.
So let me ask you a question about if you were to pick up like one AI use case, or maybe a couple of them, which you truly believe will actually have impacts. What are they?
I think AI is a differentiator and can be used as a differentiator when it's leveraged by humans. I'm very much a believer in human in the loop. And I think the things that AI is good at, identifying patterns, doing research, all of those sorts of things, I think is almost like steroids for a service industry. So if I can give a member service rep, or if I can give the teller insights into the person that's sitting across from them in a way that's not creepy, you don't want their search results for the next 6 days to include a reference to my credit union. But if there's a way that I can provide insight to a person that's building a relationship with a member or a customer sitting across from them, then I think that takes our service philosophy and amplifies it. So I think that is one of the things that credit unions can leverage, is find ways to give our staff the tools to compete with, larger fintechs and larger banks that have, an R&D budget that dwarfs, our ability to keep up. I'm very much a believer in using that technology when it makes sense, 100%. My credit union was in line to get, a 5090 GPU so that we can do some of those things. You mentioned Python, and, we're trying to use Llama CPP, and we're trying to do training with RAG and MCP and all of that sort of stuff. We are very much interested in looking at ways to make that a little bit easier for our employees to leverage. So, without having to review individual documents, you can give that information to your model, and the model can tell you whether or not it was signed properly, or whether it's complete, or the information matches the core. Those sorts of things are, I think, great use cases for minimizing the amount of, manual labor that our staff has to do. So I'm very much a believer in that sort of approach.
I feel optimistic when I hear these type of answers. Mm-hmm. Glad. In terms of core modernization, obviously all cores are my friends. So,
not mine.
They're my friends because, I cannot name any core because a lot of them are my mentors.
I won't get you in trouble.
I'm like, guys, people who know me, they know what cores I'm talking about. But still, how are you modernizing the core? Right? Because for lack of better words, there are legacy cores. I don't know what core you are on right now. But how are you modernizing the code without disrupting the member experience, right? Because, I don't want First Advantage to go off in their mobile banking platform for like 2 weeks. That's basic. Yeah. So that's a question.
Yep. So I think the industry is in the middle of kind of a renaissance of cores. Core modernization is a nice buzzword for the maybe not so nice approach where we need to start beating up some of these legacy cores. We need to have frank conversations about them because their approach from the 70s and 80s, for some of them even further back, was to go vertical, was to provide a core and then give you your online banking, your telephone banking, your teller platform, your loan origination system, and even in some cases, your email systems, all within their same stack. And it's one of those situations where you can get this bundle of pieces that are loosely jointed, but certainly not best of breed. That changed, maybe around the turn of this last millennium. But in the last few years, the move towards microservices and API first is super important. So even if you're on a legacy core, there are ways that you can minimize the impact of being on that legacy core. So when we converted to the current core that we're on now, I won't divulge any names, although you can find it easily enough. We made sure core API access. So we can partner with whoever we want to partner with. We can integrate without whatever online banking platform we want to integrate with. So making sure that you secure those sorts of relationships early on is very, very important. The other thing to consider is not just what happens when you on board with the core, but what happens when you leave? So when you're looking at switching core vendors, you have to already understand what your responsibilities are as a credit union for deconvert. So who owns the data? What are the pre-agreed upon deconversion costs and expenses and timelines and data cuts and all of those sorts of things are really important to know about up front. So if your credit union is in the middle of maybe a renewal or considering doing a vendor search, make sure you include those things. Make sure you include service level agreement language. Make sure you include all of the things your legal counsel is going to recommend because, contracts are great. Getting good pricing is great, but it's that fine print. It's, those little details that are super important when things don't go well. Contracts are really only useful when things are going bad. So that's the important part. You always have to consider worst case scenarios when negotiating those contracts. They're useless for, when everything is good. Nobody looks at it.
Nobody looks at it, exactly. Mm-hmm. But when things goes for a mess, everything comes in the priority. A company, a marketing agency went on to face some data breaches a few days back. So cybersecurity is of most importance, right? Right. So if you talk about your top cybersecurity priority right now, Jason, what would that be?
Vendor due diligence is always super important, but the thing that I think keeps most information security officers and risk managers and IT security professionals, it's employees, it's colleagues. The most exploited vector for getting member data is going to be the flesh and blood of a colleague or a member, a service representative or a loan officer that gets an email that looks just like the one sent from their CLO or their CMO or the CEO. With AI and with some of the tools and the deepfakes that are out there, it's getting more and more difficult to spot that. It used to be really easy. The grammar used to be horrible. The email used to come from the deposed king of some African country. It's really easy to identify those situations, but it's amazing that you're sending, they're sending videos of the CEO speaking to them, in emails. So it's, you need to make sure that you're minimizing your attack footprint, and training is super important. Making sure that, your entire credit union is not based on somebody's 8-digit password that's changed every 120 days. MFA is table stakes. It's no longer, an option. It's no longer recommended. If you're using passwords still, you're incredibly vulnerable. So that's the most important thing to keep your eye on.
I think, MFA is basics now. It's table stakes. Without MFA, I can't even, access. If you ask me, without MFA, I can't even access my apartment door. They're like, I can remember 3-factor authentication to go up. That's important.
Information security has to be a little inconvenient sometimes.
Yeah, it is. Exactly.
It's a pain in the butt to have to either have, my dongle or my password generator or my app or whatever. It's inconvenient, but that's what protects the member data. And at the end of the day, that's, as a credit union professional, that's my priority. I have to protect my member data.
That's it. That's a most important thing.
100%. Yeah.
In terms of skill sets, obviously, I know it's not easy to hire, retain, attract and retain good talent set, both in this market pool, one, and second, obviously, your competitors on the other side, the tech giants, the banks, one, they have got bigger brands. Second, they've got bigger wallets. So my question is, how do you hire the right talent, retain them, one, and the second part would be, what skills are you hiring for right now?
So for credit unions, certainly a credit union in the 1 billion and under asset size, it's incredibly difficult. You have to sort of take you asked the question earlier about build versus buy. You almost have to take the build approach and find, a candidate, maybe a recent graduate, somebody that's just getting into the job market a little bit, that has some of the skill sets that are important. And they don't always need to be specifically technology skill sets. If you're willing to invest time and money and training into a canvas that is very well prepared, then the hope is that by providing an environment that's favorable to the employee, whether it's, good benefits or it's great work-life balance or, being part of a meaningful service organization, those are the types of things that, smaller credit unions need to look at to try and retain talent. When I interview, some of the candidates for some of the positions that I have, I'm very upfront and I'm very frank with them. You're not going to get rich working at a credit union. You're not going to, you're not going to be a millionaire. You're not going to be a billionaire. You're going to have great work-life balance. When your son or daughter has a soccer game, you're going to go to that soccer game and you're going to have a great time and, you're going to spend the time with your family. When you're at the office, you're going to spend time with your work family, and it's going to be a supportive environment, be part of a great movement that's out to service, and serve the membership and provide services to the underserved, all of those great things that we like to talk about. And those, for some generations are super important. Certainly the millennials and Gen Z, they really find a ton of value in being part of something larger. So, lean in on some of those things. You obviously have to pay people well. You have to be competitive, but sometimes you have to look at the entire picture and look at all of the things that you're going to get. I can tell you stories of local people that have gone to some of the larger competitors out there, and even some cases, credit unions that had a horrendous work-life balance. And, they may have left their previous institution for the paycheck, but they came back to smaller institutions and institutions that didn't have some of the drama at some of those big places. So we're in an interesting spot. We're just large enough to be able to have enough of a payroll to be competitive, but not quite big enough to be, best in the market. So you have to kind of find the diamond in the rough a little bit. Hopefully over time, you can provide enough of a career path. You can provide enough opportunities and training. And, I always say that, when I hire somebody, there's a good chance that this is a rental and that, you're going to get something from us, training, a great work environment, a great set of colleagues. We have 220 of the best employees out there, and I'm going to get something out of you as well. Hard work, somebody that's diligent, somebody that thinks about membership. So it works out great for everybody if you find the right type of person.
Yeah, I think that's the way forward. I mean, credit unions won't offer you $1 million, but it can offer you a conducive workplace. Wish I could work for credit unions, but I don't know if I can. But this is amazing. One last question, Jason, in the interest of time, is by 2027, I mean, what wins? Is it technology, data, or experience?
I keep saying it's everything, but in some cases it is. Experience is important. Members need what they need when they need it. There's a reason why a lot of fintechs are, eating credit unions and banks lunch, because they've figured out a way to be hyper personalized and hyper optimized to scale instantly.
Yeah.
So, experience clearly is important to some cohort. Data is important because, data is one of our superpowers. We have more data about our members than Amazon has about their customers. We know every debit and credit that comes into their bank account. We know where they shop. That sounds really creepy,
But that's true.
but it's the way that things are. Do we use that data responsibly? Yes. Do we use it as much as we could? Probably not. Most credit unions do not. There is a lot of insight into that data. And I think a lot of credit unions need to do a better job at looking at that data and finding ways to maybe tie that data to life events that line up with some products and services that the credit union offers. So I think those things are both important. We have to be sort of everything to everyone when they want it. So it really is. It's a combination of all three. It's a hard world to be in, but I think there's enough tools out there. There's enough of the credit unions out there, even though we're a shrinking group. We're still, 143 million members strong. We need to figure out a way to get younger. We need to figure out a way to get a little bit more efficient. And we just need to figure out a way to, to survive in this super competitive world. We need to beat those fintechs up or partner with them, one or the other.
So long story short, I think I'll still have a job for the next 10 years.
Yes, you will. 100%.
But Jason, this was great. This was great having a conversation, face-to-face conversation. I really liked it. I hope my viewers like it. And thank you again for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm happy to do it. Anytime you're in town, stop by and we can have another chat.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, Anurag.
Thank you.